My friends, the secret to financial abundance has been hiding in plain sight. Every mansion standing tall against the skyline, every fortune amassed by the world's wealthiest individuals, and yes, even every dollar that finds its way to your bank account. All of these began as invisible thoughts before materializing into physical reality. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly while others struggle their entire lives, despite working twice as hard? What if I told you the difference isn't luck, connections, or even education, but something far more fundamental that lies within your control? Has this ever happened to you? You've worked diligently, followed all the conventional advice about saving and investing, yet somehow financial freedom remains frustratingly out of reach. The truth is, you've been focusing on adjusting the mirror instead of changing what's being reflected. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm about to share could fundamentally transform your relationship with money forever. This 7-minute method, based on the timeless wisdom of Neville Goddard, isn't another get-rich-quick scheme. It's a profound realignment of your consciousness that makes wealth attraction inevitable rather than occasional. The magnificence of this method lies in its simplicity. You see, most people live their entire lives as financial victims. They blame the economy, their employer, their background, or their bad luck for their monetary circumstances. They fight shadows while completely overlooking their power to create light. What they don't realize is that their financial situation is merely reflecting the assumptions they hold about themselves and their relationship with abundance. What you're about to discover might surprise you because it contradicts much of what we've been taught about wealth creation. While the world tells you that financial success comes from grinding harder, networking more effectively, or finding that perfect investment opportunity, the truth runs much deeper. Your outer world of financial circumstances is nothing but a delayed reflection, a precise mirror of your inner world of beliefs, assumptions, and emotional relationships with money. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how lottery winners often end up broke within years, or how some entrepreneurs seem to bounce back stronger after bankruptcy? The external circumstances didn't determine their financial destiny, their inner state did. And this is precisely where your journey to abundance must begin. The 7-minute method I'm about to share works with such remarkable consistency because it addresses the root cause rather than the symptoms of financial lack. It doesn't ask you to change your actions first. It guides you to transform the consciousness from which all your actions spring forth. When you change at this fundamental level, your relationship with financial abundance transforms at its core, setting into motion a cascade of shifts that must, by universal law, manifest in your physical reality. Ready to master the art of abundance? Click subscribe and join our community of conscious creators. I share powerful manifestation techniques that will transform your relationship with wealth forever. The hidden truth that most wealth gurus never reveal is that reality operates on a fundamental principle. It obeys your deepest convictions while remaining completely indifferent to your doubts. This revelation changes everything about how you approach money manifestation. When you declare with conviction that making money is difficult, the universe doesn't argue or try to convince you otherwise. It simply confirms this belief by orchestrating circumstances that make this your lived experience. The world becomes a mirror, faithfully reflecting back exactly what you hold to be true. But here's where your journey takes a powerful turn. When you truly assume at the level of knowing that wealth flows to me easily, This too becomes your experience with the same unwavering consistency. The universe isn't selective about which beliefs it manifests. It's completely neutral. It doesn't judge your assumptions about prosperity as good or bad, realistic or unrealistic. It simply responds with yes to whatever you accept as your truth. This is why two people can engage in identical actions yet experience wildly different results. One person starts a business believing success will be an uphill battle requiring years of struggle, while another launches with the quiet certainty that abundance will flow naturally. Both receive precisely what they expect, despite taking similar external actions. The difference lies not in their strategies, but in the consciousness from which those strategies emerge. Your mindset around money functions much like a garden. Every single thought about wealth, prosperity, and abundance is a seed planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness. Some of these seeds were planted long ago, perhaps by parents who unintentionally passed down beliefs like money is hard to come by, or rich people are somehow corrupt. Other seeds you plant daily through your own observations and conclusions about financial reality. But here's the critical insight that will transform your financial destiny. These seeds by themselves aren't enough to determine your harvest. Your emotions are the water, sunlight, and nutrients that determine which seeds flourish and which wither away. When you think about wealth and feel excitement, gratitude, and peaceful certainty, you're essentially nourishing the seeds of abundance. But when those same thoughts trigger anxiety, worry, or feelings of unworthiness, you're feeding the seeds of lack. This emotional gardening happens largely beneath your conscious awareness, yet it shapes your financial landscape with remarkable precision. Every decision you make, opportunity you pursue, or limitation you accept stems from this invisible garden you've been tending. The impact of this understanding cannot be overstated. You are constantly, in every moment, cultivating your financial future through this delicate dance of thought and feeling. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics of manifestation is just the beginning. The real breakthrough comes when you learn to deliberately harness this process through a structured method that reprograms your entire relationship with abundance. This 7-minute method creates a fundamental shift in your consciousness because it addresses both elements of manifestation simultaneously. It doesn't just change your thoughts about money. Any affirmation could attempt that. Instead, it systematically alters the emotional soil in which those thoughts are planted, creating an internal environment where prosperity becomes your natural state rather than something you're constantly chasing. If you're resonating with this perspective on wealth creation, write in the comments, "I'm the gardener of my abundance," so I know we're connecting on the same frequency as we continue exploring this transformative approach. What I'm about to share with you is something Neville Goddard revealed after decades of spiritual exploration and practical application. This 7-minute method isn't some magical shortcut or mystical trick. It's a deliberate, conscious exercise that activates your inherent creative power to attract wealth. The revelation here is profound. You were designed to be a creator, not a struggler or a victim. The universe responds not to your wishes or even your actions, but to the consciousness from which those actions spring forth. Many seekers misunderstand manifestation, believing it requires special gifts or perfect circumstances. The truth is far more liberating. This method works because it aligns you with the fundamental blueprint of creation itself, the same process through which all things come into being. When you engage with this practice, you're not fighting against reality. You're flowing with its essential nature. Think about this extraordinary insight. 7 minutes of focused consciousness directed toward abundance carries more creative power than days, weeks, or even years spent worrying about money. This isn't hyperbole. It's a practical truth about how reality is constructed. Worry is scattered, reactive energy that reinforces the very conditions you hope to escape. Focused consciousness, however, is the architect's blueprint from which all structures emerge. The most profound mindset shift occurs when you truly grasp that the secret to manifesting wealth isn't found in doing more, but in assuming a different state of being. Most people have this backward. They believe that once they do enough, they'll finally have enough, and then they'll be able to experience the feeling of abundance. But the wealthy have discovered the inverse truth. When you first assume the state of abundance internally, the actions you take and the results you experience naturally align with that assumption. This represents a complete transformation in how we approach financial prosperity. It's not that hard work is irrelevant, far from it. Rather, it's that hard work alone, stemming from a consciousness of lack, simply reinforces that lack. Have you noticed how some people work tirelessly their entire lives, yet never break free from financial struggle, while others seem to attract wealth with relative ease? The difference lies not in their external efforts, but in their internal assumptions. Everything you have already manifested in your life, whether it's financial abundance or scarcity, resulted from an inner assumption you accepted as true. This is the hidden mechanism behind your current circumstances. The wealthy don't just have different habits or connections. At a fundamental level, they assume prosperity as their natural state. The financially challenged, conversely, operate from assumptions of lack, even when they desperately desire abundance. Behind the scenes of every financial decision you make is an invisible assumption driving it. When you purchase something, invest your money, or even check your bank account, you're doing so from a particular state of consciousness. The journey to prosperity begins by recognizing these assumptions and deliberately choosing which ones you'll carry forward. The revolutionary aspect of this 7-minute method is that it doesn't ask you to change your external circumstances first. That approach has always been backward. Instead, it guides you to make the internal shift that automatically realigns your external world. It's like changing the source code of a program rather than trying to fix each individual bug. Once the source is corrected, everything flowing from it naturally reflects that correction. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to feel wealthy when your bank account says otherwise? This is precisely why most manifestation techniques fall short. They ask you to override your present reality with positive thoughts, creating an internal conflict that undermines the entire process. But what if there were a systematic approach that allowed you to genuinely embody prosperity consciousness, regardless of current circumstances? If you've ever experienced the frustration of trying to manifest abundance without seeing results, type "I'm ready for the shift" in the comments. Because that's exactly what we're about to explore. Not just the theory, but the practical application that makes all the difference. The true breakthrough in financial manifestation happens when you understand that this is a progressive journey, a gradual elevation of your energy signature around money. This 7-minute method works because it doesn't demand an impossible quantum leap from lack to abundance in a single moment. Instead, it guides you through a systematic transformation, minute by minute, raising your vibrational frequency with each passing moment. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument. When strings are out of tune, forcing them immediately to perfect pitch often causes them to snap, but gentle, progressive adjustments bring them into perfect harmony without damage. Similarly, this method calibrates your consciousness around money through subtle, incremental shifts that your mind and emotions can integrate without resistance. As you progress through these 7 minutes, something remarkable begins to unfold. The gap between your imagination and your faith gradually closes until they become a unified force. Most people experience a disconnect between what they can imagine financially and what they truly believe is possible. They can picture wealth in their mind but can't feel its reality in their heart. This disconnection creates the frustration of visualizing abundance while experiencing continued lack. The revelation at the core of this practice is that when imagination and faith finally speak with one voice, when what you can picture and what you deeply believe become aligned, your external circumstances have no choice but to conform to this new internal reality. This isn't wishful thinking, it's the mechanics of manifestation at work. Your outer world must reflect your inner world when that inner world achieves coherence. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe to continue your journey of financial transformation. Each video I share reveals another hidden dimension of manifestation that most abundance teachers never discuss. Let's begin exploring the actual method. The first minute is foundational and perhaps the most radical departure from conventional manifestation techniques. Instead of immediately trying to build something new, you must first clear the ground. Begin by closing your eyes and deliberately abandoning the entire world of financial impressions that have trapped you in lack consciousness. This means temporarily releasing all thoughts of unpaid bills that may be looming over you. Let go of the financial worries that may have become your constant companions. Disconnect from economic news, market fluctuations, and statistics that reinforce limitation. Most importantly, release the opinions and judgments of others about money, success, and what's realistic for someone in your position. This initial minute creates a sacred space of possibility. It's like clearing a cluttered room before redecorating. You can't arrange new furniture while the old is still taking up space. Similarly, you cannot install new financial consciousness while still mentally preoccupied with the artifacts of lack. What most seekers fail to recognize is that these financial impressions, the bills, the worries, the limiting beliefs, are not the solid reality they appear to be. They are merely echoes of old assumptions you once accepted as truth. They are the delayed reflections of past states of consciousness that continue to chain you to a financial reality you've outgrown. The first minute is not about denial or pretending these challenges don't exist in your current experience. It's about recognizing their true nature as shadows rather than substance. When you understand that your financial circumstances are projections of past consciousness rather than immutable facts, you reclaim your creative authority. This initial clearing process may feel uncomfortable at first. The mind, conditioned to monitor problems, often resists letting go of its vigilance. You might experience the impulse to snap back to reality and continue worrying. This is precisely why most manifestation attempts fail. The pull of the current reality is never fully suspended long enough for new patterns to take root. But by consciously creating this minute of mental sanctuary, you establish the essential foundation for everything that follows. You're not ignoring reality. You're recognizing that what appears as fixed reality is actually fluid consciousness that can be reshaped from within. The profound insight here is that you cannot create a new financial future while maintaining allegiance to the thought patterns that created your current situation. This first minute breaks that allegiance, creating a clean, energetic slate upon which your new prosperity consciousness can be written. If this concept of temporarily releasing your financial worries to create space for abundance resonates with you, type "I'm creating sacred space" in the comments. Now, let me show you what happens in this newly cleared mental environment. As you commit to this practice and allow external financial concerns to fade, something remarkable begins to unfold, an expanding silence that grows within you like a living presence. This isn't the empty silence of absence, but the pregnant silence of infinite possibility. It's the threshold space between two worlds, the visible realm of financial limitations you've been experiencing, and the invisible realm of unlimited abundance that awaits your recognition. This silence has a texture, a quality that becomes almost tangible as you settle into it. Many practitioners describe it as a thickness in the air, a density that feels simultaneously empty and full. This paradoxical sensation isn't coincidental. It's the actual experience of crossing the bridge between dimensional realities. You're standing in the sacred space between what your senses report and what your consciousness can create. The revelation here is that this threshold isn't merely metaphorical. It's an actual energetic state where transformation becomes possible. It's the quantum field of pure potential, where particles exist in all possible states simultaneously before observation collapses them into a single reality. In this field, your financial future remains completely fluid, free from the constraints of your current circumstances. Most people never access this field because they remain permanently anchored to their existing financial conditions through worry, analysis, and attachment. But you're learning to navigate beyond these limitations into the realm where true creation occurs. This is the space where billionaires, whether they realize it or not, conceive their empires before a single external action is taken. In this delicate state, your breath becomes the perfect anchor. It serves as the living bridge between dimensions, connecting your physical reality to your infinite potential. Each breath becomes a sacred tool that stabilizes you in this expanded awareness while preventing you from drifting back into the limited perspective you're transcending. Breathe deeply now, allowing each inhalation to serve as a conscious release of attachment to your current financial situation. Feel how your breath creates space between your essential self and the temporary conditions you've been experiencing. With each exhalation, feel yourself shedding the weight of financial concern, the burden of lack thinking, and the tension of trying to figure it all out. This breathing technique isn't merely relaxation, it's a deliberate reconnection to what Neville Goddard identified as the I Am presence within you. This presence, your true center, exists completely beyond all financial conditions. It neither increases with wealth nor diminishes with lack. It remains the eternal, unchanging awareness at your core that observes circumstances but is never defined by them. The journey to financial mastery requires recognizing this distinction between your essential self and your temporary experiences. Most people make the devastating mistake of identifying completely with their financial conditions, saying, "I am broke," or "I am struggling," as if these states define their being. But through this practice, you're reclaiming the understanding that your true identity transcends all financial limitations. With each conscious breath, you're reinforcing this fundamental truth. You are not your bank account, your debt, your income, or your investments. These are simply temporary conditions flowing through your experience. The unchanging I Am at your core remains untouched by these fluctuations, and it's from this center that all genuine creation flows. This insight represents a profound paradigm shift in your relationship with money. When you operate from the limited identity of a person struggling with finances, you perpetuate that struggle regardless of your actions. But when you reconnect with your true center, the infinite consciousness that remains untouched by conditions, you access the creative power that can transform those conditions from within. The breath serves as your constant reminder of this truth. Just as air flows into you freely without effort or struggle, so too does abundance when you align with your true nature. Each inhalation becomes a physical embodiment of receiving, each exhalation a release of resistance. Through this simple rhythm, you're reprogramming your entire relationship with the flow of prosperity. If you're practicing this breathing technique right now and feeling that subtle shift in awareness, type "I am centered in abundance" in the comments. Because in this centered state of awareness, something profound begins to emerge within your consciousness. From this centered state emerges the most powerful revelation of this entire practice, a truth so fundamental yet so frequently overlooked that it explains why most manifestation attempts produce disappointing results. In this first minute, you must recognize that the pure I am is the absolute foundation of all wealth manifestation. This isn't a metaphor or a spiritual nicety. It's the bedrock principle upon which all authentic abundance must be built. Before you can effectively claim abundance, prosperity, or wealth, you must first acknowledge the pure existence that precedes all these states. This recognition isn't abstract philosophy, it's practical metaphysics that radically transforms your relationship with manifestation. The breakthrough insight is that consciousness itself is the primary substance of the universe, and everything else, including your financial circumstances, is secondary. The critical mistake most seekers make is attempting to manifest riches without first recognizing the consciousness that creates and sustains those riches. It's like trying to grow fruit without acknowledging the existence of the tree. The identity shift here is profound. You're not a person trying to get money. You're the consciousness from which all prosperity flows. This distinction creates a completely different, energetic signature. Rather than approaching manifestation from a position of lack-seeking fulfillment, you're operating from wholeness expressing itself. This shift alone eliminates the vibrational contradiction that sabotages most abundance practices. When you silently declare "I am" within yourself, something extraordinary happens on an energetic level. You ignite the divine spark that governs all manifestation of prosperity. This seemingly simple affirmation isn't merely words in your mind. It's a vibrational declaration to the universe, saying, "Here is the consciousness that creates abundance." The power isn't in the syllables, but in the state they evoke within you. This declaration establishes you as the source, not the recipient, of financial blessings. Can you feel the radical paradigm shift in this understanding? Most approaches to wealth position you as someone waiting to receive prosperity from external sources, a job, an investment, an inheritance or luck. But this method completely inverts that relationship, placing you at the creative center of your financial universe. From this awareness, all wealth naturally flows because you've aligned yourself with the original creative principle. You're no longer swimming upstream against your financial current. You've positioned yourself at the headwaters where that current begins. This is why Neville Goddard emphasized this point so consistently throughout his teachings. He recognized that without this foundation, all other manifestation techniques become mere mechanical exercises without transformative power. The revelation that many miss is that this "I am" state isn't something you need to achieve or develop. It's what you already are beneath all acquired identities and beliefs. The journey isn't about becoming something new, but about clearing away the accumulated debris that obscures your true nature. This first minute isn't about adding something to yourself, but about remembering what was never actually lost. This understanding transforms your entire approach to financial abundance. You're not trying to attract something foreign to your nature. You're expressing what is intrinsic to it. Wealth isn't something external to be acquired through effort. It's an expression of the boundless abundance that constitutes your essential being. From this foundation, manifestation becomes less about getting and more about revealing what already exists in potential form. The shift in perspective creates an entirely different quality of energy. Rather than the contracted, anxious energy of someone desperately trying to improve their financial situation, you embody the expanded, peaceful energy of someone allowing their natural abundance to express itself. This quality of energy is magnetic to prosperity in ways that striving can never be. If you're experiencing an internal shift in how you relate to abundance, from seeking to sourcing, from getting to being, write "I am the source" in the comments, because once this foundation is established, you're ready to explore how this awareness begins to reshape your entire financial reality. As you settle into this "I am" awareness, you may notice something interesting begin to happen. Financial worries might still arise in your mind. Thoughts of debt, bills, or money struggles may float into your awareness, almost as if testing your new foundation. This is completely natural and represents an important crossroads in your practice. How you respond to these thoughts will either strengthen your new prosperity consciousness or pull you back into the old pattern of lack. The unexpected insight here is that the correct response isn't to fight against these financial worries when they appear. Many manifestation teachings make the critical mistake of encouraging you to battle negative thoughts, which only amplifies their power and creates internal conflict. Instead, Neville Goddard revealed a more elegant approach, one that transforms your relationship with these thoughts without engaging in energy-draining resistance. When concerns about money drift into your awareness, simply observe them with the same detached attention you might give to clouds passing across the sky. Don't judge them as failures in your practice or signs that it's not working. Don't struggle to push them away or replace them with forced positive thinking. Simply acknowledge their presence with both tenderness toward yourself and firmness in your commitment to your practice. This approach creates a revolutionary shift in your consciousness. Rather than identifying with these thoughts as your financial reality, you're witnessing them as temporary mental formations passing through the vast sky of your awareness. They have no more permanence or solidity than clouds. They appear, transform, and dissolve on their own when not energized by your attention. The breakthrough comes when you gently redirect your attention, not to an imagined financial future or to positive affirmations about money, but back to the pure presence that exists prior to all financial conditions. This subtle distinction makes all the difference. You're not trying to replace one set of thoughts with another. You're returning to the source consciousness from which all thoughts emerge. This redirection creates a completely different trajectory than most manifestation practices. Instead of moving from negative to positive thinking, still remaining within the realm of thought, you're moving from any thinking about finances to the pure awareness that precedes and transcends all financial concepts. This is the master key that unlocks the door to genuine abundance consciousness. As you practice this gentle redirection, something extraordinary begins to unfold within you. A profound peace that feels like completeness. You begin to experience the rare sensation of needing nothing financially. This isn't denial or pretending you don't have bills to pay. It's a genuine inner sufficiency that arises not from having everything externally, but from reconnecting with the fullness of being that you already are. This state represents the greatest paradox in manifestation. The moment you authentically feel you need nothing is precisely when you become magnetic to everything. Most people operate from the energy of needing wealth in order to feel complete, which creates a vibrational frequency of absence that repels the very abundance they seek. But when you experience the peace of sufficiency, regardless of external conditions, you generate a completely different energy signature, one that naturally attracts prosperity. This is the creator's state. Look deeply at the nature of creation itself. Does a painter desperately need to create a painting to feel complete? Does a composer anxiously require a symphony to feel whole? No. Creation flows naturally from fullness, not from lack. The creator doesn't desire wealth. They know wealth as an extension of their nature. They don't frantically seek prosperity. They allow it to flow through them as a natural expression of who they are. This distinction unveils the true meaning of financial freedom. Most define it as having enough money to do whatever you want, but genuine freedom is an internal state where your sense of wholeness no longer depends on financial conditions at all. From this liberated consciousness, you're free to create abundant prosperity, not because you need it, but because it's the natural expression of your being. This is the alchemy that transmutes your entire relationship with money. You're no longer approaching abundance from a place of lack-seeking fulfillment. You're expressing abundance from a place of fullness that naturally overflows. If you're beginning to sense this subtle but profound shift in your relationship with prosperity, write, "I am complete" in the comments, because this completeness becomes the foundation for the next phase of our practice. As we transition into the second minute of this practice, a profound revelation begins to unfold. The silence you've cultivated isn't merely the absence of financial thoughts. It's the active preparation for prosperity. This distinction completely transforms how you experience this quiet space within yourself. Rather than perceiving it as empty, recognize that it's charged with unlimited potential, like a field of energy gathering strength to manifest your financial desires. This insight represents a fundamental shift in how we understand the creative process. Most people view silence as passive, as if nothing is happening. But in the realm of consciousness, silence is intensely active. It's the canvas being prepared before the masterpiece is painted. It's the quiet gathering of forces before the magnificent expression. As the mental noise about money gradually recedes in this second minute, you'll begin to sense this gathering of potential. It might feel like a subtle pressure or a pleasant fullness expanding within you. Some describe it as a magnetic quality or an electric aliveness that permeates their awareness. These sensations aren't imaginary. They're your direct perception of creative energy assembling itself before taking form. The revelation here is that the quieter your mind becomes regarding financial matters, the more powerful the creative impulse that follows. This operates according to a universal principle. Energy concentrated is energy amplified. When your consciousness isn't fragmented across countless worries and plans about money, it becomes unified into a singular creative force with exponentially greater manifestation power. This principle directly contradicts the prevailing mindset in our culture. The world has convinced us that financial power comes from constant action, endless planning, continuous hustle, and perpetual worry about money. We're told that if we're not frantically doing something about our finances every moment, we're failing or falling behind. This collective delusion has created a society of people exhausted by financial anxiety, yet still struggling to experience true abundance. The unexpected truth that Neville Goddard discovered through decades of experimentation is that authentic financial power emerges not from constant outward activity, but from centered stillness. This isn't about abandoning intelligent action in the world. It's about ensuring that action springs from the right source. When actions emerge from a noisy, anxious mind, they carry that fragmented energy and produce limited results. But when those same actions flow from centered stillness, they carry transformative power. Behind the scenes of every financial empire, whether the founders realized it or not, was a moment of quiet clarity, a vision held in stillness before the external activity began. This stillness isn't laziness or passivity, it's the concentrated power of consciousness, gathering itself before expression. It's the difference between scattered energy that dissipates quickly and focused energy that moves mountains. The profound insight that revolutionizes your relationship with abundance is this: only those who quiet themselves can hear the whisper of infinite prosperity available to them in each moment. This whisper isn't audible to the busy mind, consumed with financial calculations and worries. It can only be perceived when mental activity settles, allowing deeper intuition to emerge. This second minute serves as your initiation into this revelatory silence. As you continue to release financial concerns and rest in the I am awareness, something begins to shift in your relationship with abundance. Rather than striving to attract prosperity through force of will, you're allowing yourself to become receptive to the infinite supply that has always been available but was drowned out by mental noise. What's fascinating is how this approach completely inverts conventional financial wisdom. Most people believe they must first take massive action to change their circumstances, and then they'll finally experience peace about money. But this method reveals the opposite trajectory. First establish peace within, then take action from that centered state, and your circumstances will transform with remarkable efficiency. This counterintuitive path represents the difference between pushing against reality and flowing with universal forces. One is exhausting and produces limited results. The other is energizing and creates exponential returns. If you've noticed throughout your life that more effort doesn't always create better financial results, type "stillness is power" in the comments. Because in this quieted state, you're ready to access the next level of manifestation consciousness. Now, having established this profound stillness within yourself, you enter the third minute of this practice, a pivotal stage where your creative work truly begins. In this sacred space of receptivity, you're ready to make a deliberate choice that will reshape your entire financial reality. This is the moment to select, with absolute clarity, the exact financial state you wish to inhabit and assume it as already real. Notice the language here. I'm not suggesting you ask for money or plead with the universe for prosperity. Such approaches maintain the energy of separation between you and abundance. Instead, this practice invites a complete identity shift, where you assume the consciousness of someone who already possesses financial security. This distinction represents the watershed moment in manifestation practice, where most seekers unknowingly sabotage their results. The blueprint for transformation is remarkably straightforward, yet profoundly powerful. You must deliberately abandon the identity of financial struggle that may have defined your experience until now. This means releasing the self-image of someone who works diligently yet receives little in return, who constantly sacrifices yet never seems to get ahead, who's always chasing money rather than attracting it. This release isn't about denying your current circumstances, but about recognizing that those circumstances stem from the identity you've been occupying. Your financial situation hasn't been happening to you. It's been happening through you, through the financial consciousness you've been embodying, often unconsciously. Now you consciously choose to wear a new identity, the consciousness of someone who attracts wealth effortlessly and naturally. This isn't about pretending or fabricating an artificial persona. It's about recognizing a dimension of yourself that has always existed in potential form, but hasn't yet been activated in your experience. Feel the quiet confidence that naturally accompanies financial security. Notice how differently you would breathe, stand, and move through the world if money were no longer a source of anxiety, but simply a resource that flows to you abundantly. Experience the peaceful certainty that all your financial needs are met with ease and grace, not as a future possibility, but as your present reality. The journey of consciousness always follows this sequence. Being precedes doing, and doing precedes having. Most people have this backward. They believe they must first have money in order to do certain things, which will then allow them to be financially free. But this method inverts that sequence, starting with the assumption of being financially abundant, which naturally leads to different actions, which inevitably produces different results. This represents a radical departure from conventional thinking about wealth creation. The traditional approach focuses almost exclusively on strategies, tactics, and hustle. the doing dimension. While action certainly has its place, what's often overlooked is that actions emerging from a consciousness of lack will always be limited in their effectiveness regardless of their intensity. When you shift your identity at the level of being, you initiate a cascade of transformations that ripple through every dimension of your life. Your decisions about money change. Your perception of opportunities shifts, your relationship with wealth transforms, even your physiology responds differently to financial situations. All these changes happen naturally, without forced effort, because they're simply expressions of the new identity you've assumed. This is the revelation that has transformed countless lives. Your financial reality isn't primarily shaped by what you do, it's shaped by who you are being while you do it. Two people can execute identical financial strategies with radically different results because they're operating from different states of consciousness. The strategy itself is secondary to the consciousness from which it's implemented. In this third minute, allow yourself to fully inhabit this new identity. Feel how your shoulders naturally relax when financial pressure no longer constrains you. Notice how your breathing deepens when worry about money dissolves. Experience the mental clarity that emerges when financial anxiety no longer clouds your thinking. These subtle physiological shifts aren't trivial, they're the physical expressions of your consciousness realignment, and they communicate powerfully to both your subconscious mind and the field of infinite possibilities surrounding you. If you can feel this identity shift beginning to take place within you, type "I am financially free" in the comments, because as this new identity takes root, something remarkable begins to happen with how you relate to the concept of wealth itself. A critical insight emerges at this stage of our practice, one that liberates you from perhaps the greatest stumbling block in manifestation work. You don't need to force yourself to believe in your financial abundance. This revelation often comes as profound relief to those who have struggled with traditional approaches that demand unwavering belief despite all contradictory evidence. Instead of this exhausting internal battle to convince yourself of something that doesn't yet appear true, this method offers a gentler, more effective pathway. Simply feel what it would be like if your desired financial state were already your reality. This subtle shift transforms the entire experience from one of mental strain to one of embodied exploration. Allow yourself to experience, even for a few moments, the sensation of having already achieved your desired level of wealth. How would your posture naturally adjust if financial pressure no longer compressed your shoulders? How would your voice change? Its tone, its pace, its confidence, if money were no longer a source of anxiety? How would your breathing deepen when financial stress no longer constricted your chest? These aren't abstract questions, but invitations to a sensory journey that bypasses the critical mind. This approach works with your psychology rather than against it. Your conscious mind may resist belief in prosperity that contradicts your current circumstances, but it rarely resists imaginative exploration. By framing this as a what-if experience rather than a forced belief, you slip past the guardians of your current reality and access the creative dimensions of consciousness. The revelation that transforms your entire relationship with abundance is that imagination isn't mere fantasy or escapism. It's the most authentic creative act possible. When you imagine financial abundance as real and sustain the feeling associated with that reality, you initiate a reorganization of universal forces that begins aligning circumstances to match your internal state. This isn't mystical thinking, but a practical application of how consciousness interfaces with the quantum field of possibility. Modern physics has demonstrated that the observer affects the behavior of particles at the quantum level. Your consciousness, focused through imagination, similarly affects the field of potential from which your reality materializes. You're not pretending when you imagine financial freedom. You're accessing a version of wealth that already exists in potential form, awaiting only your recognition to begin its journey into manifestation. This understanding transforms the very nature of your manifestation practice. You're not creating prosperity from nothing. You're tuning your consciousness to a frequency where that prosperity already exists, like turning a radio dial to receive a broadcast that was always transmitting. You're aligning your awareness with an abundance that has always been available but wasn't being received through your previous consciousness settings. The decision point here represents a fundamental mindset transformation. Will you continue trying to manipulate external circumstances while maintaining the same consciousness? Or will you shift your consciousness and allow external circumstances to naturally reorganize around it? One approach requires constant effort against resistance. The other invites alignment with universal flow. In this third minute, give yourself permission to fully inhabit this imaginative realm, not as fantasy, but as an exploration of parallel possibilities. Feel the emotional texture of financial security, the quiet confidence, the expanded sense of choice, the freedom from pressure. Notice how this state affects not just your thoughts about money, but your entire being, physically, emotionally, and energetically. What's truly remarkable about this practice is that it creates an experiential bridge between your current circumstances and your desired reality. By genuinely feeling the state of abundance now, you're not creating a gap to be crossed, but establishing a continuity of experience that naturally evolves from one expression to another. The universe responds not to what you want, but to what you vibrationally are. And in these moments of aligned imagination, you are wealth itself. If you're experiencing this subtle but profound shift from trying to believe in abundance to simply feeling the experience of it, type "I feel it now" in the comments, because this feeling state is the gateway to the next dimension of our practice, where imagination and reality begin to merge. As we enter the fourth minute of this transformative practice, you're ready to activate one of the most powerful techniques in the manifestation process, the creation of a mental scene that symbolizes your financial fulfillment. Having established the proper foundation of I am consciousness and embodied the feeling of abundance, you now give this energy a specific focus through deliberate imagination. This isn't random daydreaming, but strategic visualization that serves as a blueprint for manifestation. Choose a specific scenario that would only be possible if your desire for wealth were already fulfilled. The key insight here is selecting a scene that implies the completion of your financial desires rather than the process of acquiring them. This distinction creates an entirely different energetic signature. Perhaps you imagine a close friend or family member congratulating you on your financial success, their face beaming with genuine happiness for you. Or maybe you see yourself calmly checking an account balance that brings a spontaneous smile of satisfaction to your face. You might visualize signing the final papers on a dream home, or making a significant donation to a cause you care about. The specific scenario matters less than the feeling it evokes within you. What Neville Goddard discovered through decades of experimentation is that the scene itself isn't what creates manifestation. It's the emotional reality it generates within you. This represents a profound revelation that completely transforms how you approach financial abundance. The emotional quality that actually brings wealth into your experience isn't desperate wanting, but calm knowing. This distinction makes all the difference in the vibrational frequency you're broadcasting to the universe. Consider the energetic difference between these two approaches. The person who pleads for money, even if using positive affirmations or visualizations, remains vibrationally aligned with lack. Their emotional signature communicates, "I don't have this," which perpetuates that very experience. But the one who gives thanks for abundance as if it's already present, is operating from a completely different dimension of consciousness, one that naturally attracts its corresponding physical reality. This insight represents a complete paradigm shift in manifestation practice. Instead of using visualization to intensify desire for what you don't have, you're using it to generate the feeling of already having received. The journey moves from asking to acknowledging, from seeking to finding, from hoping to knowing. This transition in consciousness creates an entirely different pathway for universal forces to respond to. As you engage with your chosen scene, allow it to unfold naturally in your imagination. Don't force details or try to control every aspect. Instead, let the scene reveal itself to you, almost as if you're watching a memory rather than creating a fantasy. This approach bypasses the analytical mind and activates deeper levels of consciousness where true transformation occurs. The subtle but crucial element here is to rest in the knowing that your financial needs are met. This isn't an intellectual assertion, but an embodied certainty, a peaceful recognition of completion rather than an anxious reaching toward future fulfillment. When you achieve this state, even momentarily, you've aligned yourself with the vibrational frequency of prosperity that already exists in the quantum field of potential. What's extraordinary about this practice is how it creates a bridge between dimensions, between the reality where your financial desires exist as potential and the reality where they exist as manifestation. By generating the feeling of financial fulfillment now, you collapse the time gap between desire and manifestation, allowing universal forces to reorganize much more efficiently than if you remain in the consciousness of waiting and wanting. The inner knowing that emerges from this practice isn't forced conviction, but natural certainty, the same certainty you feel about sunrise following night. You don't hope for or affirm the sun's appearance, you simply know it as an established fact. This is the quality of consciousness that manifests with remarkable power and efficiency, not because you've convinced yourself to believe, but because you've aligned with a truth that exists beyond belief. If you're experiencing this subtle yet profound shift from desiring wealth to recognizing it as already yours, type "It is already done" in the comments. Because as this certainty takes root within you, we move into an even deeper dimension of the manifestation process. As you continue this practice, your essential task becomes beautifully simple, yet profoundly transformative. Remain in this state of financial fulfillment until it feels completely natural to you. This is where most manifestation attempts fall short. People briefly touch the feeling of abundance before snapping back to their habitual financial consciousness. But true transformation requires persistence until the new state becomes your default, not an exceptional experience. The insight that revolutionizes this process is understanding that naturalness, not intensity, is the key to effective manifestation. You're not aiming for ecstatic excitement about wealth, but for the quiet normalcy of it, the same casual certainty you feel about sunrise following night. When prosperity feels as natural as breathing, you've truly embodied the consciousness that manifests it effortlessly. Pay careful attention to how your physical body responds to this new truth. Notice how your breathing naturally deepens and slows as financial anxiety dissolves. Feel your heart rate calming as the perception of financial threat recedes from your nervous system. Experience the gentle wave of completion washing over you, not as an emotional high, but as a peaceful homecoming to your natural state. These physiological shifts aren't incidental to the process. They're crucial indicators that your entire being is aligning with your new financial identity. What's happening in these moments is far more profound than positive thinking. Your consciousness is literally accepting and integrating a new financial self-image at every level: cellular, emotional, mental, and energetic. This integration represents the tipping point in your manifestation journey. When prosperity consciousness becomes your natural state rather than something you're trying to achieve, the universe responds with a corresponding reorganization of your external circumstances. This isn't magical thinking, but the practical operation of consciousness as the primary creative force in your reality. As we enter the 5th minute of this practice, something extraordinary begins occurring beyond your visible awareness. Though your bank account may not yet show change, the causal level of reality, the dimension where manifestation begins before appearing in physical form, has already shifted in response to your consciousness. This understanding represents one of the most empowering revelations in the manifestation process. Most people make the mistake of waiting for external evidence before believing in the effectiveness of their practice. But this approach fundamentally misunderstands the sequence of creation. Physical manifestation is always the final stage of the process, not the first. By the time money appears in your account, the real creative work has already been completed in the invisible realms. What's happening behind the scenes as you maintain this prosperity? Consciousness is a complete reorganization of the energy field around you. Circumstances that support your new financial identity are being magnetically drawn toward you. Opportunities that align with your prosperity consciousness are being activated. People who resonate with your new frequency are being guided into your experience. Resources that match your abundance vibration are being directed to you. This isn't wishful thinking, but the practical mechanics of how consciousness interfaces with physical reality. Quantum physics has demonstrated that observation affects the behavior of particles at the subatomic level. Your consciousness, focused through sustained feeling and imagination, similarly influences the field of potential from which your reality materializes. The watershed moment in your manifestation journey comes when you truly understand that you're not waiting for wealth to appear. You're witnessing a process that has already been initiated at the causal level and is now moving through sequential stages toward physical expression. This perspective shift transforms your entire relationship with the manifestation process. Instead of anxiously monitoring external conditions for evidence, you can rest in the certainty that the invisible has already begun working in your financial favor. This certainty isn't blind faith, but an understanding of how reality is constructed, from consciousness outward, from invisible to visible, from cause to effect. This 5th minute serves as your initiation into this expanded awareness where you begin perceiving reality as a multi-dimensional process rather than a fixed condition. You're learning to orient yourself to the causal dimension where creation begins rather than fixating exclusively on the effect dimension where it completes. If you're beginning to sense this subtle but profound shift in perception, from seeing abundance as something to achieve to recognizing it as a process already in motion, type "I see the invisible at work" in the comments, because in this expanded awareness we discover perhaps the most powerful dimension of the manifestation process. The profound insight that fundamentally transforms your manifestation journey emerges now with crystal clarity. For the creator, external evidence of wealth always comes last. The internal feeling comes first. This revelation completely inverts the approach most people take toward financial abundance. The conventional mindset waits for circumstances to change before allowing feelings to shift, essentially placing the effect before the cause in the creative sequence. But those who understand the deeper mechanics of manifestation recognize that the first authentic sign of financial transformation isn't what appears in your wallet or bank account. It's what you feel in your consciousness. This isn't wishful thinking, but an acknowledgement of how reality actually constructs itself from the inside out. The feeling state you occupy is the energetic blueprint that physical circumstances eventually conform to with mathematical precision. When the feeling of abundance becomes genuinely true for you, when it's not just an intellectual concept, but a lived internal reality, physical circumstances have no choice but to reflect this inner state. This isn't because the universe is sentient and choosing to reward you, but because consciousness and its external reflection operate as two aspects of a unified system, like the inside and outside of the same glove. Think about the implications of this understanding for your financial journey. Most people spend their entire lives trying to manipulate external circumstances while maintaining the same internal state, essentially attempting to change the reflection while keeping the face the same. But this approach works against the fundamental flow of creation, leading to constant struggle and limited results. When you align with the creative sequence, feeling first, circumstances second, you're working with the natural momentum of manifestation rather than against it. This alignment doesn't just produce better results, it transforms the entire experience from one of struggle to one of inspired flow. Your actions in the world become expressions of abundance rather than desperate attempts to create it. Now, as we enter the 6th minute of this practice, your focus shifts to perhaps the most crucial aspect of effective manifestation, sustaining your chosen state of prosperity with both serenity and conviction. Having established this consciousness of wealth, your task is beautifully simple, yet profoundly important. Maintain it with steady presence. Think of your prosperity consciousness as a seed that has now been planted in fertile soil. What does this seed need to flourish? Not constant digging up to check on its progress. Not anxious hovering and fretting. Not dramatic emotional upheavals between hope and despair. What it needs is simply stability, confidence, and patient nurturing. The same qualities that allow all seeds to naturally develop into their full expression. The most common sabotage point in manifestation occurs precisely here. Having planted the seed of prosperity consciousness, many people immediately undermine its growth by constantly uprooting it to check for evidence. They shift back and forth between the new state and the old, creating a turbulent, energetic environment where nothing can properly develop. This pattern reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how manifestation operates. The universe doesn't respond to intermittent signals, but to consistent vibrational patterns. When your prosperity consciousness fluctuates dramatically from moment to moment, the creative forces receive mixed messages that cancel each other out, resulting in stagnant circumstances despite considerable internal effort. The true mastery in this 6th minute comes from developing what Neville Goddard called faithful persistence, the capacity to maintain your chosen state regardless of contradictory evidence or emotional fluctuations. This isn't rigid force, but a gentle, confident return to your center whenever you notice yourself drifting from it. During this minute, you may notice thoughts arising that challenge your new prosperity consciousness, concerns about bills, doubts about whether this practice works, memories of past financial struggles. The transformation comes not from preventing these thoughts, but from how you respond to them. Instead of being derailed by them, simply notice them with compassionate awareness and gently return to your centered prosperity consciousness. This response pattern creates a profound rewiring of your relationship with abundance. Each time you choose to return to prosperity consciousness rather than being swept away by contrary thoughts, you strengthen the neural and energetic pathways associated with abundance. What initially requires conscious effort gradually becomes your natural state, your default way of being in relation to money. If you can recognize this pattern from other areas of your life, Perhaps you've seen how consistent small actions eventually become effortless habits. Type "consistency is key" in the comments, because this understanding brings us to the final transformative minute of our practice. What emerges in this stage of our practice is a profound opportunity to rest in absolute certainty. Not a manufactured confidence, but a deep recognition that invisible forces have already begun creating your financial abundance. This represents perhaps the greatest challenge for the logical mind, which has been conditioned to demand tangible evidence before accepting any truth. Your human mind habitually doubts and seeks external confirmation, wanting proof before commitment. But those who truly understand the mechanics of manifestation recognize a fundamental truth about creation. The harvest never appears the moment the seed touches soil. There is always an invisible germination period where powerful forces are at work beneath the surface, completely hidden from physical sight, yet absolutely essential to the manifestation process. This revelation transforms your entire relationship with the manifestation journey. Instead of anxiously monitoring external circumstances for evidence of change, you can surrender into trust of the unseen process. This isn't blind faith, but alignment with how reality actually functions. First invisible, then visible, first energy, then matter. What's happening in this 6th minute is the development of a new relationship with uncertainty, not eliminating it, but transforming how you respond to it. Rather than allowing uncertainty to trigger doubt and anxiety about your financial future, you're learning to perceive it as the natural, necessary space where infinite possibilities are gestating before taking physical form. This shift in perspective doesn't just ease your manifestation journey, it fundamentally alters your entire experience of creating prosperity. Instead of the exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment that characterizes most people's financial aspirations, you enter a state of peaceful expectancy, the serene certainty of someone who has planted in fertile soil and now allows nature to take its course. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because another crucial dimension emerges in this 6th minute: how you perceive your relationship with wealth itself. The revelation that transforms your manifestation practice is this: don't treat your prosperity consciousness as something fragile, temporary, or foreign to your nature. This is not a delicate state that could vanish at the slightest challenge or contradiction. Instead, you're invited to inhabit prosperity consciousness as your rightful, permanent dwelling, your authentic home rather than a temporary vacation spot. This subtle but profound shift changes everything. Most people approach abundance as something they must attain and then vigilantly protect, creating a relationship with wealth characterized by tension and insecurity. But when you recognize abundance as your natural state, the authentic expression of your essential being, you relate to it with comfort and familiarity rather than desperate clinging. This isn't arrogance, but an alignment with the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, which is inherently abundant, creative, and expansive. The energetic signature of this relationship is completely different. Consider how differently you move through your own home, compared to a space you're visiting temporarily. In your home, you move with ease, familiarity, and rightful belonging. You don't question whether you deserve to be there or worry that someone might ask you to leave at any moment. This is precisely the quality of relationship you're establishing with prosperity in this practice. The remarkable insight that Neville Goddard discovered through decades of experimentation is this: when abundance becomes completely natural to you internally, when it feels like coming home rather than visiting foreign territory, it becomes absolutely inevitable externally. The outer must conform to the inner with mathematical precision once the inner state achieves consistency. This understanding releases you from the desperate energy of someone trying to grasp prosperity and transforms you into someone simply expressing their natural abundance. The shift might seem subtle, but its impact on your manifestation experience is revolutionary. You're no longer working against your nature, but aligning with it. If this perspective on wealth as your natural home, rather than a distant destination, resonates with your deepest intuition, type "I'm coming home to abundance" in the comments. Because as this natural relationship with prosperity takes root, we enter the final transformative minute of our practice. As your practice deepens, you begin to harness the transformative power of declaration, simple affirmations that convey your new financial state with absolute certainty. But there's a profound distinction here that separates effective declarations from the countless affirmations that produce little change. The key is choosing brief, potent phrases charged with the energy of completion rather than aspiration. It is already done. These 4 simple words contain within them an entire paradigm shift in consciousness. They place you firmly in the position of one who has already received rather than one who is still seeking. Other powerful declarations might include, "I am abundantly supplied," "Wealth flows to me easily," or "Financial freedom is mine now." The specific words matter far less than the consciousness from which you speak them. The revelation that transforms these statements from mere positive thinking into genuine creative power is this: you're speaking them not as hopeful wishes for the future, but as acknowledgments of what has always been true at the deepest level of reality. This subtle but crucial distinction changes everything about their energetic impact. Consider the difference between someone desperately repeating, "I am wealthy," while feeling poor, versus someone quietly acknowledging, "I am abundantly supplied," from a centered state of inner sufficiency. Though the words might be similar, the consciousness behind them creates entirely different vibrational signatures. One contradicts itself energetically, while the other achieves internal coherence. These declarations serve as anchors that stabilize your consciousness in prosperity when external circumstances might otherwise pull you back into lack thinking. They're not mental techniques for convincing yourself of something untrue, but verbal expressions of an inner knowing that's beginning to take root within you. Speak these words silently within yourself, allowing them to resonate not just in your mind, but throughout your entire being. Notice how your body responds to these declarations, perhaps with a subtle release of tension, a deepening of breath, or a gentle wave of peace. These physiological responses aren't incidental, but powerful indicators that your entire system is aligning with your new financial identity. Now, an essential milestone in your journey emerges: how to handle the inevitable moments when doubts about money arise. This represents perhaps the most critical juncture in your manifestation practice, the point where most people sabotage their progress by fighting against contradictory thoughts or feeling defeated by them. As you continue in this 6th minute, you may notice thoughts surfacing like, "But my bank account is still empty," or memories of past financial struggles flickering through your awareness. Perhaps a bill payment comes to mind, or you recall a recent financial disappointment. These mental events are completely natural. They're simply the momentum of your previous consciousness pattern continuing for a time. The breakthrough insight that revolutionizes your relationship with these doubts is this: don't fight them. Fighting against thoughts creates an energetic contradiction that actually empowers them through your resistance. Instead, simply acknowledge their presence with compassionate awareness, recognizing them as echoes of an old pattern rather than truths about your financial reality. This approach represents a fundamental shift in how you relate to your internal experience. Rather than being identified with every thought that passes through your awareness, you're establishing yourself as the witness consciousness that observes thoughts without being defined by them. This witnessing perspective gives you freedom from the tyranny of mental content that most people never experience. When these doubts about money arise, gently redirect your attention, not to opposing thoughts, but to the feeling of financial fulfillment you've been cultivating. This redirection isn't forced resistance, but a natural return to your center, like adjusting your position in a comfortable chair. You're not fighting against lack, but simply returning to abundance as your natural state. What's fascinating about this practice is how it gradually rewires your entire relationship with your thoughts. Instead of being at the mercy of every financial worry that passes through your mind, you develop the capacity to hold a steady, prosperity consciousness regardless of mental fluctuations. This stability becomes your foundation for effective manifestation. The inner journey of wealth creation is ultimately about achieving this kind of emotional sovereignty, the ability to maintain your chosen state regardless of temporary thoughts or external circumstances. If this approach to handling financial doubts resonates with you, type "I am the witness, not the worry" in the comments, because this witnessing consciousness opens the door to the final phase of our manifestation practice. As we continue to explore the depths of this practice, a liberating truth emerges that completely transforms how you approach financial manifestation. What many seekers fail to recognize is that the manifestation of wealth is born not from strenuous effort, but from the simple acceptance of abundance as your natural state. This revelation stands in stark contrast to conventional approaches that emphasize constant striving, affirmation, repetition, and forceful visualization. The breakthrough insight here turns everything we've been taught about achievement upside down. What you truly need to attract money isn't straining or forcing, but peaceful knowing. A quiet certainty that rests at your core and radiates outward. This knowing isn't intellectual, but experiential, not a concept you understand, but a truth you embody. Consider the profound wisdom in this perspective shift. In nature, creative energy moves silently like a seed, germinating underground. The most powerful forces of growth and transformation operate beyond visible sight, in the quiet darkness where miracle follows natural law. There's no strain in this process. No anxiety, no desperate pushing, just the calm unfolding of what must be according to universal principles. This is precisely how manifestation functions in your consciousness. While your mind rests in the simple acknowledgement that it is already done, universal forces begin their intricate dance of reorganization to mirror your inner conviction. The outer reality has no choice but to conform to the inner pattern once that pattern achieves stability and coherence. This understanding illuminates why so many well-intentioned abundance practices produce disappointing results. When we approach manifestation from the energy of striving, even positive striving, we unwittingly infuse our practice with the vibration of not yet having, which perpetuates precisely that experience. The counterintuitive truth is that acceptance of abundance now, as your present reality rather than your future hope, creates the energetic signature that manifests as physical prosperity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because in this 6th minute you discover a powerful tool that bridges dimensions of reality. Your breath becomes the living connection between the visible realm of current financial circumstances and the invisible realm of infinite abundance that exists in potential. This isn't poetic metaphor but practical metaphysics. Your breath literally connects these dimensions of experience. With each conscious inhalation, you strengthen your awareness of wealth as your natural state. Feel the abundance of the universe flowing into you as freely and naturally as the air that fills your lungs. Notice how this breath carries not just oxygen, but the very essence of prosperity into every cell of your being. This isn't visualization, but direct experience of abundance at the most fundamental level, the exchange of life force itself. With each deliberate exhalation, release any lingering doubts about your prosperity. Feel them dissolving and dissipating, returning to the nothingness from which they arose. These doubts have no substance or reality beyond the temporary attention you've given them. As you exhale, you're not forcing them away, but simply allowing what doesn't serve your highest expression to naturally fall away. The journey of transformation accelerates dramatically when you allow your entire body to participate in this new state of abundance consciousness. Most manifestation approaches focus exclusively on mental techniques, overlooking the profound wisdom and creative power of your physical vessel. Your body isn't separate from consciousness, it's the living expression of it, the temple where invisible becomes visible. Notice how your posture naturally shifts as you embody prosperity consciousness. Feel the subtle release of tension in your shoulders, the natural straightening of your spine, the deepening of your breath. These aren't incidental changes but powerful physical expressions of your consciousness realignment. When your body speaks the language of abundance, it communicates to both your subconscious mind and the field of infinite possibilities with remarkable clarity. What's unfolding in these moments is a complete reimagining of your relationship with wealth at every level: mental, emotional, physical, and energetic. You're not creating prosperity from nothing, but allowing the prosperity that exists as potential to flow through you without resistance. Like electricity seeking the path of least resistance, abundance naturally flows toward the consciousness that accepts rather than strains, that knows rather than hopes. If you're beginning to sense how this subtle shift from effort to acceptance could transform not just your financial reality, but your entire approach to creation, type "acceptance is the path" in the comments. Because as this integrated state becomes established, we enter the culminating phase of our practice. As we enter the seventh and final minute of this powerful practice, a profound transition awaits. This is the moment to gently open your eyes and re-engage with your environment, but not as the same financially limited being who entered this experience. The subtle yet revolutionary shift that has occurred within you now accompanies you back into your everyday world. This return represents far more than the conclusion of a meditation. It marks the threshold where inner transformation begins, expressing itself in outer experience. The consciousness work you've done hasn't been an escape from reality, but a preparation to engage with it more effectively. You now carry the vibration of abundance with you like an invisible aura that will begin reshaping every aspect of your financial life. The remarkable insight that Neville Goddard revealed is that once the inner transformation is complete, your primary role shifts dramatically. You're no longer working to make prosperity happen. You're simply living as if it's already an inseparable part of your life. This distinction creates an entirely different energetic signature. Instead of the strained vibration of someone trying to attract wealth, you embody the natural flow of someone expressing their inherent abundance. This seventh minute initiates a profound identity reimagining that extends far beyond this practice. The meditation concludes, but the real-world application begins. From this moment forward, you're invited to speak, act, and respond as a financially abundant person naturally would. This isn't pretending or fake it till you make it. It's authentic embodiment of the prosperity consciousness you've awakened within yourself. Consider how this shift might express itself in countless subtle ways throughout your day. How does a financially abundant person respond when receiving a bill? Not with anxiety or resentment, but with calm acknowledgement. How do they approach opportunities? Not with desperate grasping, but with centered discernment. How do they make financial decisions? Not from fear of lack, but from awareness of sufficiency. The decisive insight that transforms your entire relationship with prosperity is this: you no longer need to try to create financial abundance through forced action. Instead, you simply embody the prosperity that already exists within you as your natural state. This approach aligns you with the fundamental flow of creation, being precedes doing, which precedes having. When you operate from the consciousness of already being prosperous, your actions naturally align with that reality, inevitably producing corresponding results. This embodiment expresses itself through countless micro-decisions throughout your day. When you shop, you make choices not from a mindset of deprivation, but from centered abundance. When you invest, you act not from desperate hope, but from calm confidence. When you speak about money, your language naturally shifts from struggle-oriented to possibility-oriented. These subtle adjustments aren't contrived behaviors, but authentic expressions of your transformed consciousness. The most powerful catalyst for financial transformation isn't finding the perfect strategy or system, but becoming the embodiment of prosperity consciousness in every moment. Your presence, how you show up energetically in each situation, communicates more powerfully to the universe than any technique or affirmation ever could. When your very being radiates the frequency of abundance, the physical world has no choice but to reorganize itself accordingly. What's extraordinary about this approach is how it completely inverts conventional wisdom about wealth creation. Most people believe they must first do certain things to eventually have money, which will finally allow them to be financially free. But this method reveals the authentic sequence. First, be the embodiment of abundance consciousness, then naturally do what aligns with that state, which inevitably results in having the corresponding physical prosperity. As you move through your day following this practice, you may notice reality beginning to respond in subtle but unmistakable ways. Perhaps you'll experience unexpected financial opportunities, or creative solutions to monetary challenges, or synchronistic encounters with people who support your prosperity. These aren't coincidences, but the natural response of the universe to your shifted consciousness. The revelation that transforms manifestation from theory to lived experience is understanding that the outer world is infinitely more responsive to who you're being than what you're doing. When your essential state, your beingness, vibrates at the frequency of abundance, everything you do becomes infused with that energy, creating a powerful resonance that the material world naturally mirrors. If this perspective on embodying rather than pursuing prosperity resonates with something deep within you, type, "I am what I choose to be," in the comments. Because as you continue integrating this consciousness into your daily life, an even more profound dimension of financial manifestation begins to unfold. As you move through your daily life carrying this new prosperity consciousness, you'll inevitably encounter moments that appear to challenge your transformed awareness. Your external reality, bank accounts, bills, financial obligations, may temporarily continue showing the same limitations you experienced before. This is perhaps the most critical juncture in your manifestation journey, the moment where most people abandon their new consciousness and return to lack thinking. What Neville Goddard discovered through decades of teaching this method is that these persistent appearances aren't contradictions of your new reality, but merely shadows of past thinking, delayed reflections of the consciousness you previously embodied, just as the light from distant stars continues reaching Earth long after the star itself has changed. The manifestations of your previous financial consciousness continue appearing in your experience temporarily, even after your inner state has transformed. The decisive moment of authentic transformation comes when you can move through these apparent contradictions with the quiet confidence of someone who knows a secret, that your financial abundance is already secured at the causal level of reality. This isn't delusional thinking, but alignment with how creation actually unfolds, first in consciousness, then in experience, with a natural time lag between the two. This perspective creates an entirely different relationship with seemingly contradictory circumstances. Instead of allowing them to deflate your confidence or pull you back into lack consciousness, you can view them with compassionate understanding as the final expressions of an identity you've outgrown. They're not indications that it's not working, but confirmation that reality operates precisely as this method describes, with consciousness as cause and circumstances as effect. The wisdom that emerges in this seventh minute reveals perhaps the most subtle yet powerful dimension of manifestation. Your silent confidence in prosperity becomes the primary language the universe recognizes. This represents a profound departure from conventional thinking about how to create change. Most people believe they must announce their intentions loudly, take dramatic action, or make sweeping external changes to manifest prosperity. But those who understand the deeper mechanics of creation recognize that the most powerful communication happens silently, through the unspoken certainty you carry within. You don't need to tell others about your financial aspirations or make grand declarations. You simply need to carry the inner knowing of abundance in your gestures, decisions, and interactions, allowing it to infuse everything you do with its signature vibration. This silent confidence communicates to the universe more powerfully than any words or actions because it emanates directly from your being rather than your doing. It's the difference between someone trying to convince others they're confident versus someone who simply is confident. The former requires constant effort and creates an energetic contradiction. The latter flows naturally and creates coherent resonance. The inner journey of transformation requires developing a new relationship with apparent contradictions. When a bill arrives that you can't immediately pay or an unexpected expense emerges, you're presented with a choice point. Will you allow this circumstance to collapse your prosperity consciousness, or will you maintain your centered awareness regardless of appearances? This isn't about denial or ignoring practical reality. It's about recognizing which dimension of reality has causal power. When you maintain prosperity consciousness in the face of contradictory circumstances, you're not being delusional, you're being metaphysically accurate, acknowledging that consciousness precedes manifestation and continuing to operate from cause rather than reacting to effects. What's unfolding in this practice is a complete reimagining of how reality constructs itself. Most people believe the sequence moves from external circumstances to internal states. When my financial situation improves, then I'll feel abundant. But this method reveals the authentic creative sequence. First establish the internal state of abundance, then watch as external circumstances gradually reorganize themselves to match. The revelation that transforms your entire financial destiny is recognizing that your task isn't to make money appear through force of will or strategy, but to maintain prosperity consciousness regardless of temporary appearances. When you achieve this state of unwavering inner certainty, not through rigid control, but through genuine alignment with your authentic, abundant nature, the physical world has no choice but to conform. If you're beginning to sense how maintaining this inner certainty, regardless of external circumstances, represents the master key to manifestation, type "unwavering is unstoppable" in the comments. Because as this certainty becomes your natural state, something truly extraordinary begins to unfold in your experience. As you continue embodying this prosperity consciousness, you encounter countless decision points throughout your day, moments that determine whether you're truly living from your new state or slipping back into old patterns. Perhaps the most revealing of these moments are your spontaneous reactions to financial situations. These instant responses, occurring before conscious thought intervenes, reveal your true relationship with abundance. The transformative insight that Neville Goddard emphasized repeatedly is this: Don't allow yourself to react to financial situations as someone who still lacks. React as someone who already possesses abundance. This distinction completely rewires your relationship with money at the most fundamental level. When bills arrive in your mailbox or inbox, notice your immediate internal response. Does your stomach tighten? Does your breath become shallow? These physiological reactions aren't random. They're the bodily expression of your financial consciousness. The pivotal shift occurs when you can receive those same bills with the calm certainty of someone who knows resources are abundantly available. This isn't pretending or denial. It's alignment with a deeper reality where your needs are always met. Similarly, when financial opportunities present themselves, notice how you approach them. The person still operating from lack consciousness pursues every opportunity with desperate urgency, afraid to miss anything in a world of perceived scarcity. But those embodying true prosperity consciousness approach opportunities with the natural selectivity of someone who knows abundance is their birthright. They can calmly evaluate which opportunities align with their highest vision, rather than frantically grasping at anything that might improve their circumstances. This selective discernment itself communicates a powerful message to the universe about your relationship with prosperity. These reactions aren't superficial behaviors, but authentic expressions of your consciousness. You can't fake them for long, which is why most techniques of acting as if produce limited results. The breakthrough comes not from mechanically imitating prosperity behaviors, but from genuinely transforming the consciousness from which those behaviors naturally emerge. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because here we encounter perhaps the most profound revelation about manifestation. External financial reality ultimately bows to internal faithfulness to abundance consciousness. This isn't magical thinking, but recognition of the causal relationship between inner states and outer circumstances. When your prosperity consciousness achieves consistency, when it's no longer a practice you perform, but simply how you naturally are, nothing in the external world has the power to contradict it. This understanding illuminates why so many manifestation attempts fail, despite initial enthusiasm. Many people affirm abundance briefly, perhaps for a few minutes each day, but then surrender to appearances of lack during the other 23 hours. They oscillate between states of prosperity and poverty consciousness, creating an energetic pattern too inconsistent for effective manifestation. What distinguishes those who successfully transform their financial reality isn't the particular technique they use, but their perseverance in maintaining prosperity consciousness regardless of temporary circumstances. The universe doesn't respond to sporadic affirmations or visualizations, but to the consistent vibrational pattern you establish through faithful persistence. Think of manifestation like tuning a radio to a particular frequency. Occasional adjustments to the right station, immediately followed by returning to static, won't produce clear reception. Only when the dial remains steadily positioned on the desired frequency does the broadcast come through with perfect clarity. Your consciousness works exactly the same way. Temporary alignments with prosperity create momentary glimpses of abundance, but consistent alignment creates complete transformation. The journey of financial manifestation ultimately becomes a process of inner integration rather than outer manipulation. Instead of trying to change your circumstances through force of will or strategy, you're establishing a new normal in your consciousness, a state where prosperity feels so natural that it requires no effort to maintain. From this integrated state, your external reality has no choice but to reorganize itself accordingly. What's remarkable about this approach is how it completely inverts conventional wisdom about wealth creation. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to make money through constant effort against resistance, you're simply being the embodiment of abundance and allowing money to flow to you as the natural expression of that state. The path of struggle gives way to the path of alignment, where prosperity becomes not something you achieve, but something you allow. If you're beginning to sense how this fundamental shift from reacting as someone who lacks to responding as someone who possesses could transform your entire financial experience, type "I choose abundance in every reaction" in the comments. Because as this consistent embodiment becomes your new normal, an extraordinary dimension of financial manifestation begins to emerge. As your journey with this practice deepens, an extraordinary perspective begins to emerge, one that completely transforms how you relate to the manifestation process. The profound revelation that Neville Goddard shared with only his most dedicated students is this: what you desire financially has already been created on the causal plane of existence. You're not waiting for prosperity to somehow materialize from nothing. You're simply witnessing its natural unfolding in time. This understanding creates a revolutionary shift in your relationship with abundance. There's nothing to wait for, nothing to desperately pursue, nothing to anxiously anticipate. Your prosperity exists now, fully formed and complete, at the level of pure potential, and is expressing itself through a carefully orchestrated sequence of events in physical reality. The journey isn't about creating something new, but about allowing what already exists in formless potential to take tangible shape in your experience. When you truly grasp this principle, your entire approach to financial abundance transforms. Every new contact who enters your life, every unexpected opportunity that presents itself, every financial increase that appears, none of these are random coincidences or lucky breaks. They're simply answering the decree you issued when you chose to embody abundance consciousness. They're the inevitable physical expressions of the state you've assumed within. This perspective eliminates the agonizing weight that characterizes most people's manifestation journey. The constant questioning, when will it happen? Why isn't it here yet? Am I doing something wrong? Dissolves when you recognize that the creative act has already been completed at the causal level. What appears as delay in physical manifestation is simply the natural time lag between cause and effect, between the invisible realm of consciousness and the visible realm of circumstances. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because here we encounter perhaps the most empowering revelation of this entire practice. You are no longer approaching the universe as a financial petitioner, but as a conscious creator. This represents a complete identity transformation. Most people spend their entire lives asking for money, whether through prayer, visualization, affirmation, or desperate action. This asking, regardless of how it's expressed, maintains the energy of separation and lack. But through this practice, you've transcended the role of petitioner and assumed your rightful position as master of your abundance. This isn't arrogance, but alignment with your true creative nature. You're not commanding the universe from ego, but from the centered awareness of your essential identity as the consciousness from which all prosperity flows. This command isn't expressed through force or demand, but through the quiet certainty of gratitude. With each step you take throughout your day, you're silently reaffirming, I am wealth, I am prosperity, I am abundance. Notice the profound distinction in these declarations. You're not claiming to have abundance, but to be abundance itself. This isn't semantic wordplay, but recognition of a fundamental truth. You don't possess prosperity as something separate from yourself. You are the very consciousness from which all prosperity emerges. As you maintain this consciousness throughout your daily activities, something remarkable begins to unfold in your experience. Everything that once seemed distant or unattainable begins drawing near, magnetically attracted to your prosperous state. Opportunities that previously seemed unavailable suddenly appear in your path. Resources that seemed scarce begin flowing more abundantly. Connections that could advance your financial well-being mysteriously present themselves. None of this is coincidence, but the natural response of the universe to your shifted consciousness. The journey of manifestation ultimately reveals itself not as a technique for getting what you want, but as a pathway to becoming who you truly are. Financial abundance flows, not because you've mastered some secret formula, but because you've remembered your essential nature as the creative consciousness from which all abundance springs. The struggle ends not when you finally acquire enough, but when you recognize that you are enough, complete, whole, and infinitely abundant at the core of your being. If this perspective resonates with something deep within you, this recognition that you aren't pursuing prosperity but embodying it, type "I am abundance" itself in the comments. Because once this consciousness becomes your natural state, an extraordinary dimension of manifestation begins to unfold. You've now discovered the profound truth that Neville Goddard revealed about the nature of abundance, that it begins not with external strategies, but with a fundamental shift in consciousness. This 7-minute practice isn't just another manifestation technique. It's a complete reimagining of your relationship with prosperity at every level of your being. I've watched countless lives transform through this simple yet powerful method. The beauty lies in its accessibility. Anyone can implement this practice regardless of their current financial circumstances. What matters isn't where you're starting, but the consciousness you choose to embody moving forward. If you've resonated with this message and feel called to this path of abundance consciousness, I'd love to know you're here with me. Simply write, "My abundance is awakening," in the comments below. Your comment not only connects us, but helps others discover this message who may be searching for exactly this wisdom right now. If you found value in today's exploration of prosperity consciousness, gently tap that like button. It's a small gesture that creates ripples, helping this message reach those who are ready for this transformation in their financial reality. For those committed to this journey of consciousness expansion, I've created a channel filled with practical wisdom to support your path. Subscribe to join our community of conscious creators who are rewriting their financial stories from the inside out. There's a powerful video right here that builds beautifully on what we've explored today. It reveals the specific blocks that prevent prosperity consciousness from fully expressing in your life. Click and continue this journey with me there as we go even deeper into dismantling the hidden obstacles to your financial abundance. Until we meet again, remember, you are not the seeker of abundance. You are abundance itself expressing.